Hello everybody, I'm Dave Thomas, and today I'm building the Silver Arrow. Now this is actually a launch kit, so it comes with a launcher and launch control system and stuff like this. And I got this in an Estes bump and ding sale, so you can see it's got a little damage to the cardboard. But this is not the typical Launchpad here, so I'm not sure if this is just an old one, although probably not too old, still has a QR code on it. But as you can see here, the Launchpad's built a little bit different than their standard one. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up and we'll see if we get any more insight on it from the instructions. Alright, so the model itself looks to be another E2X one here, easy to assemble. So we'll go ahead and open this up and see what we've got. Okay, so this is an Astron II model rocket launch controller. Let me see if there's a date on this. 2012, okay. So this is, at this time, about 13 years old. Alright, so the rocket itself here, I'll go ahead and open this up. Okay, so we've got our body tube, decal sheet, small parts package that includes the fin can, motor retainer, shock cord, and fins. 12-inch parachute. And nose cone, and the base for the nose cone that is not glued in. Alright, looks like we've got everything we need, so we can go ahead and get started here. The first thing to do is assemble the motor mount and fin can here. So they are using a tube type plastic cement. I'm going to use a medium viscosity brush-on cement here. It's just a little bit easier to control. Now on this one, there are no fins going directly through the joint here, which is actually better, it makes it stronger. And we're just going to apply cement to the edges, and especially to the little holes there. And you don't want so much that it's dripping off. And especially on these threads here, we want just enough to glue them without having it drip into the thread area itself. Okay, then we're going to take the two halves here and simply join them together, put the little pegs in the little holes, close that up. I'm going to hold this for about 30 seconds and then set it aside to dry, and we'll come back and work on a different part of the rocket while it's drying. Next we're going to apply the launch lug. Okay, so that's this here. And first we'll need to draw a line. Now they show you using a door frame. For the camera here, I use this. This is a tube marking guide made by Estes. And it's basically a whole bunch of raised edges here. And so what we need is a line along the aft end here. So you don't need to do the entire length, and we want to do this lightly. Okay, so this is going to be the aft end or back end of the rocket. And I don't know if it shows up on the video very well, but I've got just a very faint line here. And then we need to measure 1.5 inches or 3.8 centimeters along the line from the aft end. Okay, so that is going to be right about there. so now what we'll do is take the launch lug itself, and it's got two little protrusions on the back edge there, and so we're going to put one of those on our line where that marking was. Then we're going to carefully push that down. We don't want to collapse the tube. That gives us two little indentations there. And now what I'll do is take my hobby knife and I'm just going to cut a little cross cut here. There we go. About 3 or 4 millimeters in each direction. Blade bent. Okay, and I'm going to press this back in, and having those little cross cuts there will allow this to come in and be flat. I can't quite get the same leverage here as I can't get my finger under that point. So I'm just going to rub it in that way and make sure this is straight. Alright. Now they're showing again some tube type cement here. And I will go ahead and do that. Alright, so just make a line of glue here. Can extend a little bit beyond those. Okay, and then we can put some clear tape on these, or on this each end here, to allow for additional support. Okay, so I'm just going to take a little bit of transparent tape here. We're going to put this right below the loop of the launch lug there. I'm going to squish that down. Now this is the magic tape. You might want to just use cellophane. I think it actually works better. Alright. But what I'm doing is, before I let it go across there, I'm first getting it down into the edges like this. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing on the other end. Okay, now when it's on the launch pad, hopefully that's facing away, you won't be able to see it. Okay, and then if you have any visible line there, mine's really not worth even bothering with, go ahead and erase that. And by now we should be able to put the fins into the fin can. Now they're showing adding glue and then sliding it in. I've noticed that in later models that use the same fin can type of assembly, that they don't even bother gluing it, because once you have the retainer nut on there, the fins can't come off. Alright, I am going to glue these, but I'm going to use a different method than this. So first of all, we just put each fin in. This. Now the reason I'm not using their method there is that sometimes the fins grab about halfway in with the cement, and then you're stuck, okay, because it won't fly and you can't get it in or out without breaking it. But what you can do is take some low viscosity brush-on type cement. I'm using the Tamiya Extra Thin here. Alright, so here I'm just taking the brush and allowing the glue to go in underneath the fin base here. Because again, it's not the glue that's holding the fins on here, it's the slide-in joint. This just kind of acts as a lock. And if you do happen to get a little bit of cement where you don't want it, don't try and wipe it, just let it dry. This particular type of cement is very unnoticeable once it dries. Okay, and then also do take some caution against getting this on the threads for the motor retainer. Okay, I think I've got all of them there. I'm going to let this dry for a few minutes and then we'll come back and attach it to the body tube. While I'm waiting for the fins to dry, we'll go ahead and assemble the nose cone here. Now in my kit, the base here was already in it, but it was not glued in. Here again, you can use the tube type plastic cement or the medium viscosity brush on type, and we're just going to put a bead right inside the edge of the nose cone there. Alright, you want that even but not really heavy or it'll start to melt the nose cone. Alright, put the base in, move it back and forth a few times to seat it within the cement, and then that can be set aside to dry as well. Okay, I'm also going to assemble the parachute here. So carefully cut this open. Now if you've seen my other videos, you know that I don't like to directly tie parachutes onto rockets. I prefer to have a snap swivel that allows me to change them quickly. Right, but whichever way you use, we're going to first start by gathering all of the shroud line loops over a finger, probably of your dominant hand, and then with your other fingers on the other hand, hold the middle of the parachute sheet and then allow things to adjust here so that all of the corners are at about the same level there. Okay, now I'll show you both ways to do this. If you want to directly tie this to the nose cone, you can. And you're going to take these loops. All right, you're going to thread those under the nose cone eyelet there. Okay, then you're going to bring this all the way out, put the chute through it, and then pull that tight, and that will attach it to the nose cone. All right, if you're going to use a snap swivel, with this particular one, you're going to want a larger snap swivel like this. The size of the snap swivel really only depends upon what the eyelet here on the nose cone is. So you want a snap part here that is large enough that it can move freely around there without hanging up. Okay. If we had a different eyelet here, you could use a smaller snap swivel. And you can get these pretty much any place that you find fishing supplies. Okay, now this attachment is going to be similar. So we'll go ahead and gain our loops again here. Alright, and readjust the parachute. And now we're going to gather those loops once more. And this time we're going to pass them through the swivel end, the round end of the snap swivel. Just like this. Alright, going to regain our loops once more. Now this time, instead of passing the parachute through, we can just pass the snap swivel through. So I'm going to push this up through the loops, pull the loops downward toward the parachute, and then we're just going to pull that whole thing tight. Alright, we're going to check here. One of those came a little bit loose, so if you need to at this point, you can readjust this. Alright, by first of all, just passing that snap swivel back through. Alright, so it's just hanging around up here. Alright, I am readjusting my parachute shroud lines. Alright, now we're going to try again. There we go. Alright, recheck. That's better. Okay, once you've got that in place, you can put a little dab of white glue or wood glue on it. Just a little touch there, doesn't take much. You just kind of work that into the knot, and that'll keep that knot from coming loose again. Alright, we'll go ahead and set this aside. Now we're ready to attach the body tube to the fin can here. And here again they are using the tube type plastic cement for this. Now for this part in particular, find where we were here, there we go. Alright, they're using the tube type plastic cement. When we're gluing though a plastic to cardboard, I prefer to use a viscous or gel type super glue. Either one's satisfactory. I think I just get better results this way. So whichever one you're using, just put a bead of glue just inside the aft edge of the rocket. If you know how to use epoxy properly, you could use epoxy here as well. Some people do. Alright, now I'm just going to put this in, turning it back and forth to seat the glue well. Alright, and then at the end of that, I'm going to set this so that my launch lug is in line in between two of the fins there. Alright, we'll give that one a couple of minutes to dry. And while we're doing that, we need to cut out the shock cord mount. There we go. Okay, now if you don't want to cut up your instruction manual, you can make a photocopy of this. Let's make sure we're not doing, yep. Just want to make sure there's nothing on the back side of this that we still need. We don't. To put the shock cord in, we're using this shock cord mount, and the instructions show to mount it like this, where you put some glue along this, and then you fold the 1 over the 2 over the 3. The problem in doing it this way is that when you fold this thick part here is going to be over this thick part here, and it gives you a bulge inside the body tube that can interfere with your parachute. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently. One of my viewers told me about doing this, and it's a really neat trick. So we're going to cut about an inch there, or 2.5 centimeters roughly, lengthwise to form a forked area in the shock cord. Alright, we're going to add some glue here. And I'm going to spread that all around here, which is why I've got this paper towel down. Alright, and now I'm going to put this across, but I'm going to spread the forked areas within the 2 region there. Alright, go ahead and kind of embed this in the glue. But now when I fold this, the fork areas will go on either side of the shock cord up here, preventing a large bulge. Alright, so get the 1 over the 2, squish that down well. We want paper, glue, and shock cord in here. We don't want a lot of airspace. Alright, then we're going to take the 2 over the 3, making sure those fork areas are on either side. Squash that down some more. Okay, and then I'm going to put a nice even coat of glue on this side. So this side will be in contact with the interior of the body tube. And now what I'm going to do is fold a curvature into this so that'll match it with the body tube, and it's the convex side that's going to be glued in here. Be careful I don't get a bunch of glue all over the rocket. Alright, now this can go just about anywhere, but it needs to be at least 1.5 inches down inside the body. It doesn't matter which side it's on or something like that. Alright, so if you got long fingers, go ahead and run that down. But now I'm pressing the shock cord mount against the inside of the body tube and against my hand here, so I can really squash that down. And it's kind of, you might be able to see just a little bit of that in there. Okay, but that's more than 1.5 inches down, and I don't see any protrusions inside the body tube there. Now we're ready to put the whole thing together. So first of all, we'll take the other end of the shock cord here. We're going to tie this onto the nose cone base using a double knot or 2 1/2 hitches. Alright, you're going to want to cinch these down tightly, pull from multiple directions. And this free end here we're going to cut back so it's about 5 to 6 millimeters or 1/4 inch long. You don't want to cut it back all the way to the knot or it'll come loose. But if you got a lot of free end up here, it can get caught between the shoulder and the body tube, and that would prevent the parachute from deploying properly. Now, if you like here, you can put another little dab of glue right on that knot. Make sure that's white or wood glue. Don't use plastic cement for this. It will melt the rubber. Okay, our motor retaining ring will go on the back end or aft end there. Now make sure there's no wet glue anywhere in here. Make sure that's completely dry. Okay, so that'll go like that. And then we attach the parachute if you have not done so already. Alright, so if you did the direct attachment method, you would have already had the parachute on there when you attach the shock cord. Alright, in my case, I just need to attach the snap swivel. There we go. Now, if you are prepping this for flight, add about 3 pieces of recovery wadding, each of which should be loosely crumpled and stuffed down inside there. Alright. But otherwise this is going to be the same. So if you're just storing your rocket and you want to keep the parachute in it, you can do it this way, or if you're launching. Alright, so this is my method. I really have had a lot of good luck with it. So I'm folding the parachute in half where every corner here is over another one. Okay, so we have paired corners. And we're going to take one side here and fold it so that these corners are now over the center corners. And do the same on the other side. Okay, so now all of the corners are on top of each other. I'm going to take the shroud lines at about the halfway point and pull them up onto the parachute here in the middle. And then one side gets folded over those, and then the other side gets folded over. So now we have this kind of a spike. We're going to take the tip and fold it down to all the corners down there. Okay, and then we're just going to fold this over on either edge to form a cylinder like this. All right. Next we put in the shock cord. Does not require anything fancy, just stuff it down in there. Alright, and then our parachute, that should slide in very easily. If it's catching, pull it out and try again. Make sure that you don't have any protrusions in your shock cord mount or something. Alright, and then finally carefully put in the rest of the material there. Alright, and I can feel that the clip of my snap swivel is getting caught in there. Okay, so now we do a shake test. Alright, and the nose should not come out. If it does, put a little bit of masking tape here on the shoulder on the inside. Don't tape the nose to the rocket, but that'll increase the friction a bit there. Okay, if it's too tight, first of all, just make sure you don't have anything caught in there. That's the most common cause of tight nose cones. But if it's still too tight, then take a little bit of 100 grit sandpaper and just lightly sand around this until it fits. Alright, structurally we're done. The last thing to do is put on the decals, and in preparation for that, I'm going to go wash my hands to try and get all the glue and oils and stuff off so that I don't leave as many fingerprints on the decals. I've washed my hands, and now we're simply going to add these decals to the rocket. They're not necessary for flight, so if you don't want to do this part, that's fine. You can use your own decals if you like. However you want to decorate it, that's up to you. Okay, now these are meant, it looks like, to go along the body tube here, but I don't think it's going to fit where the launch lug is there. Okay, so if we take a look at the illustration here on the packaging, yeah, it's essentially going in between the fins there. So one of those is probably not going to go on. And launch lug is not quite staying flat there, but I don't think it'll be a problem. Alright, now something to be aware of is that these self-stick decals are not very forgiving. Once they've been put down in place, it's really hard to get them back up without removing the color from these pre-colored body tubes. Alright, but I'm going to kind of use my fins here as a guide. Alright, then we're just going to move this up, and first of all just lightly touch it down. Okay, I can see already that this is going to buckle and make a wrinkle there, so I'm going to gently pull that up and come down again. Okay, once you've got it in position, then go ahead and start by pressing it down in the middle and then moving out to the edges. Okay, we'll do the same thing here. Okay, and then the same way here, we'll press down the middle and then move to the sides. Alright, so there's my silver streak. I'm also going to continue this video with the Launchpad assembly in case someone actually comes across one of these. And I said this is not the typical Estes launch system that's in production today. Here we have all the parts for the launcher and launch controller. The launch controller I'll come back to here. So here's all the launcher parts, and some of these are hidden inside others. So this little hub here is tape on it, And inside that is the cap for the launch rod. And then we've also got, that's the support piece for the blast deflector there. Alright, this does come with its own instructions. Alright, so that's the launch control. We'll come back to that. Okay, so yeah, we've got the hub, the standoff, the safety cap, the rod, and the legs and the blast deflector. The rod assembly for this is kind of semi-permanent once it's on. It's difficult to get it back off again. It's not impossible, but for right now I'm just going to leave it unassembled. Okay, so now we take these legs here, and like I said, these kind of strange attachment here. So these have a little pivot point here that matches up on the hub, so you just stick that in there, and then looks like you twist it here. Alright, and so in the end, the bend here should be just above the level of the hub, and so that allows it to sit like that. Okay, so this is different from the current Estes line, which usually has this poking up. Instead, this part you would put on the base of the rod. I'm going to go ahead and take one of these rods out. Alright, so this would go like this. Oops, upside down. Goes like this. So this should be, this part here should be facing downward, and that fits in here, and that gives a friction fit for the rod. And then our blast deflector would go down over the rod, and that can be twisted into place here. Okay, so note this does not have any pivot or swivel that allows you to change the angle of the rod at the launcher. You would have to lift the legs here one way or another. I'm whacking my camera there. Okay, but it does make a fairly sturdy base there. And then when not in use, you put the safety cap on top of the rod there. Alright, which would be like that. Okay, and then you can just disassemble this if you need to by doing everything in reverse. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. The launch system is pretty much assembled here. Really, all you need to do is add a battery to it. And you just unscrew this little screw here, open this up, and a 9-volt battery goes in there. And then you just screw it down again. Okay, now I'll tell you right now, I would never use this. I've seen, and I've had a couple of 9-volt based launch systems, and the problem with them is that 9-volt batteries don't have a very high energy density. And so this would be good for maybe 10 launches before you lose the battery and you have to replace it again. And 9-volt batteries are not the least expensive. So you're actually better off with the newer ones that use 4 AA batteries. A single AA battery is rated to usually at least 2,000 milliamp hours. A 9-volt battery is rated at less than 1,000. So you get more power overall from a AA type controller, which is what Estes uses now. Quest also has a 9-volt controller and it has the same problem. It's simply a matter of how much energy is in that battery. Alright, But otherwise you would use this like any other launch controller. Now this little thing here, this is to store your battery outside of the controller, and this just caps over the terminals so the battery doesn't actually accidentally get shorted wherever it's being stored. That's it for the Silver Arrow launch system. And my memory is jogging me here, and I'm thinking I said Silver Streak somewhere in here, but it's the Silver Arrow. Have a great launch and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for more of my videos.